where we were talking about certain things. So you might want to give a little context to what your question is as well. Okay. All right. So tonight is not about looking for more reasons why you're not enough. I think that we all have enough moments in our life when we feel like that. And so that is not what tonight is about. And it's certainly not about fixing yourself or finding another list of things that you should be doing better. So the invitation is be kind to yourself tonight. There's nothing wrong with you. This is just some information that might create some more ease in your life. And it's interesting because the content I was going to present has changed even more because a lot has happened since I announced this masterclass. My husband went back to work. The studio got broken into. I went through 24 hours of no sleep yesterday. And part of me was like, can I even still do this masterclass today? And then I realized like the content of this masterclass is why I can show up here today. And so I am going to be sharing a little bit of my personal life and what I'm going through right now too. Okay. Um, all right. I'm seeing some things in the chat. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Okay. And so yeah, what I'm seeing in the chat is what we're here to talk about because I think that a lot of women think about this all the time. And the reason that I think that is because, well, I think about it, right? This feeling of, I thought I would feel better about myself right now. I thought I would feel better about myself by now. I shouldn't have to be still doing this thing or correcting myself or judging my body, whatever it is, right? So you've done a lot of work on yourself. Maybe you've read the books, listened to the podcast, gone to therapy, had the tough conversations, cried the tears, journaled the pages, tried all the morning routines from the 5-minute ones to the 2-hour ones, tried to be more grateful, more confident. And still, you're finding moments where you look at yourself, your body, your relationships, your choices, and you have this like, why am I still struggling with this? This is like This is the question I've been asking myself a lot lately. Like, why am I still not where I want to be with this, and this in my life? Why do I still catch myself caring what other people think? Right? Before I go to post something. Even this week, it was like, do I talk about the studio getting broken into? Do I even let people know? Do I ask for help? Because what are people going to think about that? But as most of you know, I just show up as I am and people can take it or leave it. But I still have the thought, what are people going to think about that? Why do I still doubt myself? Why do I still compare myself to other people, other women, other situations, Instagram stories? Why do I still feel like I'm waiting to become the woman I thought I would be by now? And so this is the conversation that I want to have tonight. Because for years, I thought the point of all this inner work was that one day I would finally arrive somewhere. I thought there would be this magical place where I felt completely confident, healed, grounded, unbothered by other people's opinions, and, the affirmation we've all heard, may I fully love and accept myself, right? Completely in love with myself. I thought if I did enough work, healed enough, grew enough, that one day I would wake up and I would just feel different. And that I would stop worrying about what other people think or judging my body or wondering if I belonged. Even though I have created a whole community where belonging is our mantra, our, you know, steady point, I still worry about belonging even within my own community. I thought I would stop questioning whether I was good enough, successful enough, spiritual enough, disciplined enough, pretty enough, healed enough. I mean, the enoughs can go on forever. So I thought self love would just finally click. And then once it clicked, I would be able to just live from that place 24/7. And maybe you thought that too. Now, what I think that means is that we've actually been taught to look at self love in a way that's almost impossible to practice. Because much of the way we talk about self love does make it sound like there's a finish line. Like one day, after enough work, we're going to finally arrive at this place where we love ourselves unconditionally. And when we reach that place, then we can begin living the way we want to live, having what we want to have, being who we want to be. But after years of sitting with these questions myself and also sitting with other women who are asking their own versions of these questions, I have recently started to believe something different. And it's that we're asking the wrong question. So the question is not, when am I going to love myself, accept myself, stop caring what people think? The question is not when. When keeps us waiting, right? When keeps us believing that something has to arrive, happen before we actually begin. When keeps us hoping that confidence will come, worthiness will come, readiness will come, and then we can finally do the thing, say the thing, want the thing, ask for the thing, change the thing, start the thing, or become the woman we know we're capable of becoming. But what if confidence doesn't come first? What if feeling worthy doesn't come first? What if feeling ready doesn't come first? What if and I want you to hear this, what if the thing we have been waiting for is built through the very choices that we keep postponing? So, this is the shift I want to explore tonight. I don't think self love is a destination. I don't think it's a state where we never struggle again. I think it's something we learn to practice and to live. And then self trust, right? Because you might be feeling like a little bit of lack of self trust with yourself, is something we build through evidence. I think that confidence is something that we practice before it feels natural. And I think that worthiness becomes real to us, not because we finally think our way into it, but because we begin living as though we're already allowed to matter. And this is the whole premise of my Enough Actually program, learning to live as though we are already allowed to matter. Now, this is not always easy because so many of us were taught the opposite. We were not taught how to choose ourselves, how to put ourselves first, how to love ourselves. Instead, we were taught how to be good, how to be helpful, polite, accommodating, responsible, productive, pleasant, grateful. You should just be grateful. How many times have people heard that? You should just be grateful, right? Sometimes I even find myself bypassing with gratitude, right? The other day, or yesterday, I guess, I'm so grateful those thieves did not smash anything. They still stole stuff from me, right? So we were taught the opposite. We also learned how to ask, what do they need from me before what do I need? Or will they approve instead of, is this what I want? We learned how to measure ourselves through other people's reactions and standards and comfort, other people's ideas of who we should be. And then we wonder why self-love feels so hard. This isn't anybody's fault. It's part of being human, but there comes a time, and I think it's in midlife for most women, where some women say, and it's probably you because you're here, I don't want to live from my conditioning anymore. And then they decide that they want things to change, but then we have to figure out how. Like, how do I actually create change for myself? How do I actually love myself? How do I actually feel better about myself? And the truth is that most of us don't need another quote about self-love. We need a way to actually practice it. We need to know what to do in the moments that we're scared to be seen or scared to set a boundary. We need to know what to do when the inner critic is screaming at us. We need to know what to do when we're waiting to feel ready and that readiness just isn't coming. And that is what tonight is about. By the end of this class, I want you to leave with a clear way to work with yourself when you start asking the question, when will I finally feel better about myself? I want you to have something you can actually use. Okay? So if you want to write these down, well, actually, I'll post them in the chat. You can. So these are the 4 questions that I'm basing kind of the rest of the night on. So when you catch yourself asking when, or I thought I would feel better about this by now, I want you to learn to ask 4 better questions. And these questions are, what am I actually feeling? Where is it showing up? Why might this pattern exist? And how can I practice one small act of courage before I feel ready? So that is the framework for tonight. What, where, why, how? And these are the questions that move us out of waiting for somebody else's permission and into relationship with ourselves. These questions take all of this from a concept we are trying to achieve and turn it into something that we can actually practice. So let me explain these 4 questions. So we'll start with what? What am I feeling? What am I actually feeling? This sounds simple, but I actually don't think it's simple for a lot of women because many of us do not actually start with what we feel. We start with what we think we should feel. And I want you to just check that out for yourself. Like, do you sometimes just like decide what your emotion is in the moment rather than actually like checking and seeing how you're actually feeling? We often start with like what we think would make sense. And we move quickly into explaining, fixing, minimizing, managing. And so we skip the truth of what's actually happening inside us. We can feel completely exhausted and in the same breath tell ourselves we should be able to handle it. We can feel hurt and tell ourselves we're being dramatic. We can feel a desire, a want, and tell ourselves that's unrealistic. And then we wonder why we don't feel like we're connected to ourselves because we have this, oh, I feel really hurt. And then you have a voice that says, ah, quit being so dramatic. And you have a desire, and then your next voice says, but you shouldn't want that. That's too big. That's too unrealistic. That's not for you. So self-love, I believe, begins with honesty, but compassionate honesty. So the kind of honesty that says what is true right now. This is what is true right now. And this is what I am feeling right now, period. I'm allowed to feel it without telling a story about it. I can just feel it. I'm tired. I'm lonely. I'm angry. I'm jealous. I'm excited. I want more. I'm disappointed. I'm not okay. Admitting these things are not weakness, and we've been taught that they are. When we can define our feelings and feel them and like actually take them into the body and notice them as sensation, this is contact. It's you making contact with yourself. It's saying, oh, I am connecting my mind to my body, to my heart, and getting my whole self involved. Because many of us are trying to love ourselves without coming into contact with ourselves, which is really hard. How do you love somebody that you don't really know? Do you know what sensation is in your body when you feel angry, when you feel tired, when you feel sad? Do you know? That's one way to make contact with ourselves, right? So we have to make contact with ourselves because we have to love the version of ourselves that actually exists, not the ones that we have conditioned to be. And so I do want to just pause. And if you are confused about what I mean by conditioned, again, this is like part of being human. If you haven't read the Four Agreements, I highly recommend reading the Four Agreements. But basically, we are conditioned as human beings until we choose not to be. And what this is like the way I like to put it is we are raised once by our parents, our family, the world, our coaches, our teachers, our mentors. We get raised by them. And then there's like a point when you're an adult where you get to choose, like, am I going to raise myself now? And this is like this, okay, I was taught, I was taught blah, blah, blah. Do I actually believe that? Or I was shown in my house that being angry looks like shutting down and not talking to anybody. Is that how I truly want to get angry, or is that just how what I seen? And then we have conditions of just like beliefs about ourselves, beliefs about the world. And until you start like really examining, why do I think that? You will be conditioned until you choose not to be. And to a certain extent, will always be conditioned in some way. But it's really nice if some of the conditioning is like questioned at least a little bit. Okay. So if the first question is, what am I actually feeling? The second question becomes, where? And it's, where is this showing up? And so I mean this in two ways. And you might want to, well, actually, I'll just copy this to you. So the two ways are, where does this live in my body? And where does this live in my life? Because the truth is that your body is far more truthful than your mind. And you have felt this. You felt heaviness in your stomach when you're pretending something is fine. You felt tension in your jaw when you're holding back words. You felt the sinking feeling when you know that you're settling, the flutter of aliveness when something is actually true for you. The body has its own language, but it doesn't speak in full sentences. So often we just like miss the communication. So the body speaks in sensation. And if you've been disconnected from your body for whatever reason, there's lots of reasons we get disconnected from our body. You might be saying to me, I have no idea what you're talking about. What do you mean sensation? And so I want you to think about, say, when you get angry, how do you know that you're angry? And the answers to this might be my face gets hot, I make fists, my heart rate increases, I get red. Okay, all of those things are sensations. Ways to start feeling sensation can be really simple. They can be things like, I notice that I am having the sensation of being hungry right now, or that I have to pee, or that I am thirsty right now. That can be a way to start with sensation. But I do think that once I say to people, like, well, how do you know that you're angry? People can usually find, like, oh, okay, I know that I'm angry because of this, this, and this. Or I know that I'm sad because I curl over like this and I'm crying and I'm like shaking and heaving a little when I cry, right? Or I just feel heavy when I'm sad. Those are all sensations. So the body doesn't speak in full sentences. We have to look for sensation. It speaks in tightness, heat, heaviness, buzzing, numbness. And that's the thing is like sometimes lack of sensation is also a communication. So when we ask, where does this live? We're not trying to analyze ourselves to death. It's just like a way of listening differently because we're learning that self love is not only for thought, it's a felt relationship. It's the ability to pause and ask, what is happening for me right now? And it's the ability to notice that the body has actually been part of the conversation all along. We think about having to deal with stuff in our minds, but the body is right there experiencing everything in your life with you. So I'll just leave that with you because that's a little, sometimes that's like, oh, that's why I've been talking about the same thing in therapy for the last 5 years because it's still living in my body and using my mind is not going to get it out of my body. And I just want to say that I think talk therapy is great. Right now, I'm going once a week. So I don't think talk therapy is bad. I just think sometimes we need other modalities. Okay. So the second question is then, where is this showing up in my life, in my life or our lives, however we're going to say this tonight? And it's because I thought I would feel better about myself right now can feel so big. It can start to feel like a statement about who we are, right? We're behind, we're broken, we should have figured this out already. But when we ask where, it becomes more honest and easier to work with. So, where do I still not feel better about myself? Is it in my relationships? Is it at work? Is it how I talk to myself when I look in the mirror? Is it how I handle mistakes? Is it how hard it is for me to ask for help or the way that I compare myself? So, this question matters because it takes us out of what is wrong with me and brings us into where is this asking for my attention? And that's a really different question because we're not making ourselves the problem. We're locating a pattern. And once we locate the pattern, then we can start practicing something different in that exact place. Because maybe self love doesn't actually happen everywhere all at once. Maybe it starts in one place, one moment, one choice, one breath. Sorry, I'm still sick a little bit. One brave action before we feel ready. Maybe self-love is in these little tiny moments. Now, the third question is why? So why might this pattern exist? And I want to be careful with this one because why can sometimes become a spiral and we can get trapped in the why. So we can ask, why am I like this? In a way that is mean. And that is not the kind of why that I mean. The why I'm talking about, again, is much more compassionate. So it sounds more like, why might this pattern exist? Why did I learn to need approval? Why did I learn to make myself responsible for everybody else's comfort? Why did I learn to be so hard on my body? Why did I learn that achievement is the only thing that makes me worthy? Okay. Now, when we start to ask these questions, it does start to show us our conditioning. It shows you where you needed approval when you were smaller, when you were younger. It shows you who taught you to be hard on your body. It shows you who taught you that you need to achieve things to be worthy or valuable. And that, if we are asking these types of questions, it stops turning our patterns into defects or something that's wrong with us. It helps us see that the things that we judge ourselves for often began as ways that we learned how to cope, belong, survive, be praised, be safe, be loved, right? Maybe something like, who's a perfectionist here? Maybe perfectionism really makes you feel like you're in control. Maybe being agreeable helps you stay connected. I used to be really bad for just being agreeable. Maybe criticizing yourself feels like a way to protect yourself from other people criticizing you. Now, this is not blame. It's not about living in the past or drudging up the past or looking for somebody to point to. It's really just about understanding the pattern so we can stop fighting with ourselves. We have enough in this world to fight with. Can we not fight with ourselves? You cannot shame yourself into self-love. You cannot hate yourself into healing. You cannot bully yourself into feeling free. So understanding why it doesn't create excuses for everything. It does not mean that we never change. It means that we change with more compassion. We stop saying, I'm broken, and we start saying, this pattern came from somewhere. You don't even have to know where. The key is, this pattern came from somewhere, and now I'm allowed to practice something new. I'm allowed to make a choice. That is the key. You are allowed to practice something new, regardless of your patterning, right? How many people do you know that just say, well, this is just the way I am? Do you think that you really just are the way you are? Or do you think that that's a choice? Some people might say it's, a little bit of both. Maybe it is. But I think that if you really want something to be different in your life, you can choose for it to be different. Now, you can't manifest the lottery numbers or anything like that. But the way you feel about yourself, the way you feel about the world, I think that we can change that. We just have to get off of autopilot and understand that we have choice and that we are in the driver's seat. Now, the last question is, how can I practice one small act of courage before I feel ready? And this is the question that matters the most if we want self-love to become something that we actually live and that we actually practice. Because we can talk about self-love forever. We can we can try to understand our patterns forever. We can identify every single little wound and every belief and every protective part of us. But at some point, the work has to become choosing differently in the present moment. And this is where courage enters. Now, what I need you to know about courage is that most people think courage just feels brave. And I don't think it actually does. If you think about the last time you had to summon some courage, what does it really feel like? It often feels like awkward, shaky, also like inconvenient. Like, why should I have to be courageous right now? Like, I don't actually I don't actually want to have to be courageous. I think that sometimes it just feels like your voice trembling when you set a boundary or you state your true feelings. Sometimes it feels like asking for help and not knowing how it'll be received. I think courage feels like saying no and letting somebody else be disappointed. And I think courage, most of all, feels like starting before the confidence arrives. Because we don't act because we feel ready. We practice the courage to act before we feel ready. Then readiness comes later. So we don't choose ourselves because we think that we're worthy. We choose ourselves, and slowly our body starts to believe that we're worthy of being chosen. We don't trust ourselves because we're never afraid. We trust ourselves because we keep showing up in all the small ways. And then those small ways become evidence. And then we start to trust ourselves because there's evidence that we can be trusted. So this is one of the biggest shifts in this whole conversation is feeling does not actually come first. The practice comes first. The action comes next. So sometimes the trembling, imperfect, honest choice comes first. And then after that choice, something in us starts to say, maybe I can count on myself. Maybe I can do hard things. Maybe I can be seen. Maybe I can want more. Maybe I can make a mistake and still be okay. So this is what I noticed myself. And I know it's still fresh. Like we are not even 48 hours post break-in right now. Okay. But this is what I noticed about myself around the break-in at the studio. So if you know me, you know I'm always looking for the lesson in the hard things. Okay. But like this didn't feel like a lesson. This didn't feel like the universe being like, here is a lesson for you. Okay. But my entire week since Sunday has given me these difficult situations. I've had a lot of difficulty this week. I'm not going to lie. It's been really challenging. But yesterday, after I drove home after finishing my Enough Actually program, I sat in my car on the driveway for a minute and I said to myself, I actually feel like all of this that's happened in the last 4 days is confirmation. And what I mean by that is look, you can still do hard things, even if you have to do them by yourself, even if you have to do them now that you're a mother, even if you have to do them now that you have way less capacity than you did before. Look, you can do them. It was hard. You didn't want to, but you did. And I think that's how self-love really becomes embodied. Not because we say, I love myself, and we suddenly believe it. It comes with being kind to yourself in the hard moments or standing up for yourself when you need to. Self-love becomes embodied because our actions begin to match the truth that we matter. And we start to understand that we matter not more than anybody else, but also not less. Why are we always putting ourselves as less? And so, like, if that felt convoluted, like my self-love lesson this week was really around belief in myself. And like, I'm kind of forming this right now, but there was a time. So last time we got broken into, I was 4 months pregnant. And I remember sitting on the couch doing that Facebook Live, getting off the Facebook Live and crying and thinking, how am I ever going to be able to handle something like this when I also have a child? I couldn't have just run down here in the middle of the night and dealt with this if I have a baby at home. And then what happened on Monday night? I had to deal with it. It was harder. I couldn't have James with me. I had to suck it up and call my mom and her husband and ask for help, which always feels hard to do, right? It's hard because he's not my dad. And so it feels like, okay, I got to call them at 1 o'clock in the morning and ask for help. But I got through it. So this, and then on the other side of it, recognizing myself that, okay, I did it. And giving myself a little pat on the back. So this is how self-love becomes embodied. And not because we say I love myself and then suddenly believe it. It's being kind to yourself in those hard moments. And I think this is where a lot of us have been stuck. We've been trying to feel our way into action when we actually need to act our way into feeling. So what I mean by that is you do the actions of self-love, and that creates the feeling of self-love. That creates the I do feel better about myself now. So we're not forcing, we're not pretending we're fine, but we take one small step that teaches the body I can move with fear. I can move with uncertainty. I can move without waiting for every part of me to be on board. This isn't fake confidence. This is embodied courage. It's confidence with roots. It's confidence that comes from lived experience. Confidence is built from courage. There are very few things in life where you are confident before you do something instead of being courageous to try. And if you can be aware of that, you'll build confidence. And I mean, one of the best examples of this is like, can you think back to when you were a little baby and you just decided to stand up and walk? You are not confident in that. You are courageous. And then we forget how to be courageous as adults. Okay. So I want to take you through a short practice now to like really experience these 4 questions in the body, because not only like, yes, this master class is about asking different questions, but it's like also how do we begin connecting with the body in a deeper way? So I want you to leave with something that you can actually use when the question when comes back. Okay? So as long as it feels good, right, and safe for you to do so, you can gently close down the eyes. And let your shoulders drop a little. Let your jaw soften. Notice where you're holding tension in the body and see if you can soften that. That is sensation. Tension is sensation. Softening is sensation. And take a nice slow breath in, letting it out gently. Feel the support beneath you, the chair, the floor, the couch, the bed, whatever is holding you right now. And notice that you are here. You have a body. You can connect with the body. Maybe you bring your hand to somewhere on the body that feels supportive. And you just say, I'm here with myself. Now, I want you to think of one area of your life where you've been asking, when will this finally change? When will I finally feel better about this? When am I not going to have to deal with this anymore? And I don't want you to choose the most overwhelming thing, but choose something that's real and that you can stay with here for a few minutes. And so maybe it is your confidence or your body, relationship, work, being seen. Maybe it's just a feeling you should be further ahead by now. And just let one thing come forward. And now ask yourself, what am I actually feeling here? Not what should I feel about this? Not what sounds spiritual. What are you actually feeling? Give yourself a moment. This could arrive as describing sensation, or maybe you can understand what emotion it is. Maybe it's fear or anger or disappointment. Maybe it's exhaustion or numbness. Maybe it's I don't know. All of that is welcome. Now kind of zero in on where it's showing up in your body. And maybe you don't feel much, and that's okay. But just notice. And now, where does this show up in your life? So where do you notice this outside of this moment? So where does it affect how you speak, choose, rest, dress, show up, relate to yourself? Just let that answer come gently. And then you can ask, why might this pattern exist? Not what's wrong with me, not why am I still like this. Why would this pattern make sense, exist? What has it been trying to protect? What did I learn? What did I think I needed to be in order to be accepted, approved of, loved? Take a breath here. Now, what is one small act of courage before you feel ready. And this is simple. Maybe the action is pausing before you say yes to something. Maybe it's posting the picture of yourself. Some people haven't updated their Facebook profiles in 10 years. Maybe it's wearing the thing you think you shouldn't wear. Maybe it's letting yourself rest, asking for help, accepting help. Maybe it's signing up for something you want instead of talking yourself out of it. Let one small action come forward. Now silently say to yourself, I can practice courage before I feel ready. Notice what happens when you say that. And maybe part of you believes it, and maybe part of you resists it. Maybe part of you wants to cry, or maybe part of you wants to roll her eyes. And that's okay. You don't have to force belief, just let it land. I can practice courage before I feel ready. Now take one more breath in. Let it out slowly. Feel your body, the support beneath you. When you're ready, you can open up the eyes and just take a moment for yourself, because this practice might have shown you something small or it might have shown you something big, and it's all okay. The point is that now you have a different way to enter the conversation. So instead of saying, I thought I'd feel better about myself by now, when is that going to happen? You can come to this practice. What am I actually feeling? Where is it showing up? Why might this pattern exist? How can I practice one small act of courage before I feel ready? This is clear and it's actionable. You can use these questions when you're standing in front of the mirror and you say something unkind, or when you make a mistake and feel bad about it, or when you feel yourself want something and then immediately make it smaller. You can use it when you are waiting for confidence to appear before you take the next step. Remember, it's not going to appear. You have to be courageous. And this is what I mean when I say that self-love has to become embodied. It's not just I love myself. It's I'm willing to listen to what is true. I'm willing to make contact with myself. I'm willing to feel what's here. I'm willing to understand why this pattern makes sense without making something wrong with me. And then I'm willing to act before I feel completely ready. Because you're never going to feel completely ready until you're already doing it. And this is how we begin feeling our way into self-love and creating relationship with yourself, because like any relationship, it is built off of repeated experiences. So if you want to trust yourself, you need experiences where you show up for yourself. If you want to believe that your needs matter, you need experiences where your needs are not always last. If you want to feel worthy, you need experiences where you stop asking yourself to be useful before you're worthy. And this is the evidence piece. You and your body believe what you repeatedly practice. If you practice hiding, hiding starts to feel safe. If you practice people pleasing starts to feel like love. If you repeatedly practice criticizing yourself, criticism starts to feel normal. If you repeatedly practice waiting just starts to feel like you're being responsible, waiting till all the things come into place. But if we want to change any of these things, the beautiful thing is we just gather evidence. We practice pausing and noticing how that feels different before just an automatic yes. We practice letting ourselves be seen in small ways. We speak up in a meeting, or we write a nice little post on Facebook. We practice receiving support, right? This week, I got a text from one of my clients. Oh, she's on the call, right? And she was like, can you send me the Amazon link for your singing bowls? And I answered all of her questions except for that one, because I was like, I don't want support with that. And then I was having some other feelings about receiving support, and Danica, my dear friend, she's also my nanny, she also works at the studio. Um, she said, "You know that you deserve support, right?" She's like, "Do you know how many people you support? You know that you could also just receive that support." And then I had a few tears and I said, "Okay, I can try that. I can try receiving support." Right? We can practice rest. We can practice desire. We can practice courage before feeling ready. And over time, these practices become evidence that you can count on yourself, evidence that you can be seen and survive it, evidence that you can disappoint somebody and still be lovable. Right? Have you ever worked something up so big in your head and then like you do the thing and it's fine? Right? You disappoint somebody and they say, "Okay." So this is what I want women to understand. Self-love is not about becoming a woman who never doubts herself. It's becoming the woman who can meet herself in her day-to-day experiences and say, "This is hard, but I know I can handle it. It feels uncomfortable to accept help, but I can believe that I'm worthy of help. I don't feel ready, but I can practice a little bit of courage." And this is it. This is the self-love that changes how you feel about yourself. Taking the actions, making the small choices. We have to make the choices. What did I say at the very beginning? I can't even remember. What did I say about choices? Somebody wrote it down. What if the thing we have been waiting for is built through the choices we keep postponing? You will feel better about yourself when you start making different choices about how you live and how you relate to yourself. And I'm not saying this is easy, but you can start real small. You can catch yourself criticizing yourself and decide, "I'm going to say 3 nice things about myself because I just caught myself being mean to myself." And that doesn't mean anything about me. It just means that I'm conditioned to do that. And I'm going to change it a little bit right now by saying 3 nice things about myself. This is it. This is the self-love that changes how you feel about yourself. And why this is better than any of the other stuff that's out there, I'm being very humble right now, is because this is the self-love that actually holds you on messy days. That like has you see yourself in beauty in an aging body. That can hold you through changing seasons. My God, have I had to love myself through this process of James going back to work. Every day I'm like, it's been 3 days. I'm like, no, he should just quit. Like, and I'm like, no, we can do this. Other people do this. Like, I can do this. It's the self-love that holds us through grief and mistakes and uncertainty and fear and growth. And it's never going to be perfect. I'm telling you that right now. Like, that is the big thing. It's never going to be perfect. You're never going to arrive. But what I will tell you, what I do know for sure, is that it does get better a little bit every single day that you practice. And this is part of the reason that I did create Self Love Summer. This is our 4th year of doing Self Love Summer. I create the things I need. And I needed a place where self love wasn't just an idea. It's like we're scheduling it in, we're being supported, we're embodying it, we're practicing it. We're remembering that we are allowed a place in our own lives. And so I have created 3 versions of it this year, which I swore I would never do again. But here we are. Last year, I was really nice to myself and only did 1 version of it because I was newly postpartum. So we have an online version that is called Enough Actually. And again, I'm not going to be humble about this because this program, seriously, is life-changing. It changed my life developing it, and the women who just completed this program left feeling different about themselves. They understand worthiness on a deeper level. They're beginning to heal all these worthiness wounds. Some of the like aha moments that people were giving me last night on the last week was like, it was just so incredibly beautiful. And then with this Enough Actually program, we're also giving you free online yoga for the duration of the summer, as well as access to our video library. And then if you want to be with us in person, if you're available to be with us in person, we have 2 versions of Self-Love Summer as well. We have the all-in Self-Love Summer and the essential Self-Love Summer. And I could list all the things that are included, but I'm just telling you, it's a fully inclusive experience developed to hold you through the summer and beyond. And the personal development program I created inside of that is called the Practice of Choosing Yourself. And so this is a 10-week program where 1 week we discuss something and then the next week we do embodiment, because there is nothing that has felt more true to me lately than we need both. We need to talk about it. We need embodiment. We need to bring it into the body to fully get it and start actually making changes. Okay. So I can send you information about that when we're done here. Well, no, I'll probably send it to you tomorrow. We're being real. But we have to come back to the beginning before we say goodbye. If you have been asking, when will I finally feel better about myself? You have to start asking something else tonight. What am I actually feeling? Where is it showing up? Why might this pattern exist? How can I practice one small act of courage before I feel ready? That is the doorway. Not someday, not when you become a better version of yourself, not when you finally feel confident. Today, tonight, not someday. Because I really believe this now. You do not become the woman who trusts herself and then starts choosing herself. You become the woman who trusts herself by choosing herself. We can't think ourselves into this. We have to do it. We have to involve the body. We can't just do it in the mind. You don't become worthy and then start living like your life matters. You start living like your life matters, and then slowly your body begins to believe you. And then everything changes. You don't wait until self love arrives. You practice it